Always good to be in a class with students. I took my teaching very serious, very responsible teacher. I've had students from all over the world. I love my students. I love my studios. I taught sculpture, life drawing, and art history. And it was a great lifetime experience. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about being an artist and also one of the ways I work. Now, when you're starting out to study art, people talk about doing your own thing. They talk about all the time, talk about finding your own style. I wouldn't worry about that. What you need to worry about is how to use the tools, how to use paint, how to use the pencil. You need to learn to use the tools because you're already an individual. You don't need to find out who you are. You're already what you are. And the main ingredients of being an artist is work, hard work, much more important than talent. If you're going to be an artist, anybody can make art at any age. You can make art out of anything. So the thing you really need to have is passion, practice, purpose, principles. And on top of that, you got to have hard work. And with those accomplishments, I look at my list every day. I'm still learning, and you should continue to do the same because that's what drives you. You're driving yourself to learn the passion of making art. And that's what it's upsetting you. If you don't feel that way, well, then you'll go into another area of interest because you won't want to work at it. So those are ingredients that help make an artist. I've been making art since I was 16 years old. And I'm 85 now, they say. I mean, I don't have a driver's license, the state police does. But anyway, that's where I am. And I make art every day. The things on the wall that I've shown you is some examples of two things that I'm known for. And one is I use line and collage. And I use both of those devices to develop a composition. So one of the ways I work, basically with animal paintings in a landscape, there's the two ways I work. One is that at the end of the day, every day, I clean my paint up. I don't leave anything out. And what I do is I grab a blank canvas or a board, and I grab that, and no preconceived idea, I just lay down some color, whatever's on the palette that day. And so I've got 10 or 15, 30 of them laying around on the floor on the studio. So every day I put something down. Now you can see here, one of my favorite things is to cut back into the paint when it's laid down. Of course, sometimes there's a color underneath that comes through, so it gives a richness to the surface. Now, one of my other favorite devices is to use a Xerox. I don't have a computer. That's a new tool. I don't have a television. I use a wood stove. I'm an 18th century man walking around in the 21st century. But that's what I do, is I take these Xerox copies of a drawing, and you can see how I can lay that down there and I think, oh my God, that's got possibilities. You could do it with anything. You could do it with an apple, a dog, a parrot, anything, and move it around on your surface. Because what happens when you lay paint like this down and you start working with it a little bit, you're reacting to whatever you've already got there. It's not a preconceived idea. It's a reaction. And one of the things that help you is to learn about a color and how to develop color. Now here's another one where I've already begun to decide that I'm going to put something in it. So I got a moose. Now in my studio, I have 6 life-size animals and about 25 on the wall besides them. And they're on wheels. I push them around. They're models. And I go in there every day and I say, well, how you doing? My dog used to go in there and jump up on one of the bears, kiss him in the morning. So that's my models. So I could put that down. You see, I've already started. Now here's one that I finished a couple of weeks ago. So the antelope wasn't there. All the rest of it was there. And I thought, you know, that might be a good idea to put an antelope in there. And so I took the plastic, put the plastic on there, and I moved him around, and I liked where he was, and I put him in there. So that's one of the ways I work. There's another one. Oh, the possibilities. It's always exciting. Now you can make this bigger, you see?
That is beautiful.
The guy doesn't want to move, you see? Now if I wanted to change that same Xerox, I could just acrylic the back side, flip it over, and move him around. Okay, that leads to the development of a bigger composition. I have notebooks. A lot of artists carry a notebook around. They carry around for notes and for drawing. I'm not one of those artists in terms of drawing. I don't take a notebook around and draw. I never did do it. But I do take a notebook around and I take cutouts. Anything you see. My wife gets catalogs. What is it called? Lands End, something like that. I go through those very carefully because the people doing those color layouts are a lot smarter than I am about color. So I cut out and take out the ones that I like and I think I can use them in a landscape painting. So I take those out. I get 7 or 8 different subscriptions of magazines. My favorite one is Wyoming Fish and Wildlife. I go through there every time and I see an animal painting, photograph I like, I cut it out and I throw the rest of it away. And I keep that. And I make notebooks. So when I'm in trouble with an animal, I can go to my notebooks, I can see a person that did it better than I did, and it'll help me describe the image. Now here's one to give you an idea of the scale. This was an advertisement of Glacier National Park. What I did is I saw the photograph in a magazine, kind of like National Geographic, and I was really excited about it. I've been in the backcountry here. Jack and I have been in the backcountry here at the glacier. And so I love that because I've had the experience of being there. And then I love the possibilities of making a painting. So what I did is I took it out, the small, I couldn't find the small, but I took the small one and I added the lower part because it needs to be wider. Then I cut it in half, moved it further over here so I could have more of the orange, as you can see behind me. So these sheep, I love those sheep and where they are, but I didn't quite what I wanted. And what I wanted was to create this sense of depth and space. Now, if you study the painting, you notice the 2 sheep were over here. But what I wanted to do is I want to emphasize the distance in the painting. Because one of my favorite things to do is to create atmosphere and depth. And you can do that 2 ways. One, you can do it with color, or you can do it with perspective. And you'll see in the show, when you see my show on the other side, where I've also used those 2 methods to give you dimension and space. That's the Renaissance ideal. My idea of a preconceived composition is the Renaissance idea. Look at Raphael. Look what he did in the School of Athens. They figured that all out ahead in a series of drawings. They didn't have one of those machines you got. They didn't have that. They didn't have a photograph. What they had was drawings, experience, and to help them develop it. So what I did, if you study this, you'll notice that, that the guy's ass is right in your face. So you're getting into the painting, and also the painting is taking you back into the distance. You see how it goes back in the distance around? A lot more interesting to me than that was, although I love those sheep. So now, when I get it back, I take it and have it photographed. Cost me about $35. And the main thing is I can see the scale. I know the scale and I know what size to stretch the canvas. So I put it on my studio wall. Now I live with it a while, and I decide, well, I want to change this. So I might change the size of that. I'd go and have a Xerox made, enlarged, and I would cut it out and put him. And I did the same thing in here. So you can see how it goes back. This one comes forward, this one goes back, creates the tension and the excitement in the painting. And so over on the, around over here, of course, this is probably going to be in a dark area. You bring some of the yellow in. Yellow's going to come forward and always drops out in the distance. So I've got it set up. Now what I do is I put it on the wall and I change it. And then I have, you'll notice in the gallery that I have gold frames, 2-inch frames on a lot of my images. Well, if I bought a gold frame for this canvas, this size, it cost me $1,500, $2,000. What I do is I go to Lowe's and I go in there where they sell this trim, goes along the floor, and I buy strips about 2.5 inches wide. It's already got a design on it. So I take that, and then I take the little corner blocks, and I learned this from Jack. I take the little corner blocks and I place that up here, and I have the strips, you know, cardboard with a strip size on my wall, all pinned in, and then I know what size that I need to make the canvas. Because what I do is I take, it's not plywood, but it's very similar. I take that and I use Miracle Muck, which is the best glue for gluing canvas down. I roll the Miracle Muck out, roll the canvas on top. I know what size I want, including what would be the 2.5-inch side, each one for the frame. And then the canvas is cotton duck already gessoed. And so I glue that down, and then I know the next step is that I take tracing paper and I outline lines of whatever the subject is. And then I take that tracing paper, place it on top of that canvas, and put Conde Crayon on the back, and I transfer it to the image. Then I know where my principal shapes are. And then I start painting. And I already have some ideas. Now sometimes I obviously change the color in many different ways because it needs it. And so I change it. Now one over here, this is one where I stole something. I steal all the time. And I stole something. This came from a Charlie Russell painting. And I think right here, if I remember, there was an Indian on a horse here. And I love the atmosphere. I love the color of Charlie Russell. So I took that image, cut one of my books up, took it out, and thought, well, and then I added the buffalo, which is from a drawing I already had. This I took from Charlie Russell. Nobody did dogs better than Charlie Russell. If you have trouble with dogs, go to Charlie Russell. He was the very best of dogs. Of course, most of them are coyotes and wolves, or a dog. And so I took that. Now this will be a triptych, I mean a double, whatever we call doubles. So you can see here, I'll have my 2.5-inch border. I have 1-inch strip here. And the way I go leaf it to make it look real is, I take the wood and I paint acrylic red. And then I paint with gold leaf on top of it. And you can't tell the difference between that when I have real gold leaf frame. And I can do it for less than $100 for a canvas this size, which would cost me $1,500, $2,000 or more if it's real gold leaf. And the people that buy it, they're so drunk they don't even know anyway it's gold leaf. So that's the way I developed that. Here's another one, which I haven't enlarged yet, but see, it has possibilities. So on the table, what I've done is I've placed a lot of compositions on the table. You're very free to go through them as we go along. Now the back wall over there, here's the sheep painting, the study. Now where did I get that? Well, I got that from Everett Payne. Now, Everett Payne was a southwestern painter, and he west painted the Sierra and the California and the mountains. Great painter, one of the very best direct, fluid, and pastel painters. And I love his color. So I took my book, my $100 book, and I cut it out. And then I enlarged that part. And I was sitting there one night, I thought, you know, what am I gonna do? And I thought, well, you know, I'll put a Rungus sheep here. And Rungus was a very famous, the best artist ever to do animals, and I wrote a book on him. It's on the table up there. But anyway, I use you'll notice that if you study my show, I'll use a lot of the same animals over and over. And who else did that? Jasper Johns. Jasper John painted the flag 500 different ways. For me, an animal is just an actor. I'm just changing the plot with the landscape. And so I use them. I use an owl over and over, same owl. I got him in my studio, drawn him for 30 years. Now here's a painting that has a lot of possibilities. Now when I put that up, I hadn't looked at that in about maybe a year, 2 years. Right away I see a problem. You see the problem? I'll show you the problem. You see that the rider on that horse? Way too big. That horse would fall in the water if he was that big. So what I do is I'll take that and cut that out and take it to my copier, and I'll make a Xerox, and I'll say, give me that image 15% smaller. I'll get it back, I'll cut it out, put the horse guy back on the horse, and I got it the right scale. But see, that would drive me nuts. As I painted that, I'd come in and see that and it'd bother me. So I change it. When something bothers me, I change it. That's what you should do. Now over there was a study for silkscreen, and I never got around to it. But that was a bear drawing of one of the bears in my studio. And that photograph was a series of 3 that I took when I was, I might have been with Jack when we went up to Glacier. I think I was when I took that picture. But that'd make a nice painting too, that size. So that gives you a little bit idea how I work. And as you develop as an artist, as I say, your own individuality and style will happen. I mean, you're already there. But it takes work, a lot of work. And you're not going to have any support after you leave your teachers. When you go out that door over there, I mean, your parents love you and you love her and all that stuff, but the person supporting you is you. And that's what you have to stick with, because when you get out in the old world out there, everybody else will walk all over you. They don't relate to humanity and culture very much, especially the artists. Now today, you have all kinds of new ways to learn about how to get an image. But I'd strongly encourage you to go to museums, go to a museum shop. You can buy postcards, very beautiful color postcards for 50 cents or $1. Put them on your studio wall. You should collect your fellow students' art. You should collect art. How could you not have art around you if you're an artist and then get pissed off if someone doesn't buy your work? Doesn't make sense. So you should buy work. You should have it around. You'll change. You say, well, I can't do it. I got to have another 300 pair of tennis shoes. Well, how could I pay $300 for a work of art when I got tennis shoes? You can. And it will have a lot of meaning for it. And you'll wear the tennis shoes out and put them on the street curb for somebody to get. Not your painting though. So you should collect other people's work. When I was a student, I collected faculty's work. And I have a huge collection. I probably have 60 or 70 paintings by other people that I didn't even do. I mean, you can't, I put them up. I just shuffle them around. Because if you don't change them, you won't see them. If you put a painting on the wall and you come back in 3 months, you won't even be looking at it. You gotta move them around as you move around and as you grow. Then they'll have more meaning for you and other people to see them. Now you're gonna see my show, and it's not gonna be a one-time rodeo. You're gonna come back and look at it. You're gonna think about what you're doing and what you're trying to learn. And go to museums. Oklahoma has 3 major museums: the Willow Rock, the Gilcrease, and the Cowboy Hall, and then they have the Modern Museum also in Oklahoma City. Those are major museums. You should go. Take your friend along, go by yourself. Very, very important as a development of an awareness, educated person, and then of course as an artist. Because let me tell you, the art world, the commercial art world, the art dealers have a very pleasant way to describe them. They're all pimps, all of them. So to work your way in, what they're looking for often is things that you don't want to do. Don't do anything unless it's in your heart. Don't do it. It's not worth it for you. Your own well-being is worth a lot as an individual. So do what interests you, and you should collect books. You should, to spend $25, $30 for a book. What it means for you is far beyond the loss of $25, $30. I have 3,000 books, last time we counted. But of course, you come from a different time now. I mean, you got the machine. I call the computer a machine. From there, everybody do all the thing. It's a machine. But there's so much information. But you have a book, you can go back and forth to it. And it would be meaningful to you in time. Any questions?
I kind of have
Yes.
a question. On your collaging process, I kind of have like a hybrid version of that.
I didn't hear you.
The collage process that you do,
Yeah.
I kind of do that on my own, but what I find is that when I take certain reference images, the lighting and the values could be off sometimes, and then it just creates problems. So I was going to ask, like, how do you kind of combat that? Or do you just like shuffle in and find more references that fits the atmosphere better?
No, well, one of the things I do is I Xerox in black and white.
Okay.
And well, I understand what you're saying, but doing it as long as I've done it, it's not a problem.
Yeah. Even like the styles?
Yeah, well, I don't even think about style. I mean, I work about probably what would you say is 4 or 5 different styles. And I don't even think about it. I don't think about a lot about what they mean. That's for someone else. I mean, if I do them and people like them and they respond to them, that's great. But if they don't, that's fine. I'm really not interested in that, and I'm not interested in humor, although I'm a comedian. I'm not interested in politics, although I know about it. But no, in my art, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in something that really does have a presence and some beauty to it, because the world's screwed up, and I don't want to add to it. So, and a lot of these things are from trips, because I was big on backpacking, going to backcountry painting, going in. This comes from the Canadian Rockies, and this photograph, I remember the day I took that photograph. Of course, the bears weren't there. I put the bears in there, but that's a very famous postcard shot in the Canadian Rockies. I mean, everybody's ever gone there is shot right through there.
Even the rocks. Like,
Well, yeah,
see it takes some-
right. But, yeah.
Can I help support that?
What?
Your answer?
What?
He paints on it, on the little collage. So he makes the collage and he edits it himself. So this right here is blown up from a little tiny thing to the scale he wants to paint it in. But if you look at this, it's all hand painted on it to match the light.
Yeah. No,
So you're saying, like, how do you deal with the fact that you're collaging a bunch of different images together and they have different lighting scenarios? He paints it.
Yeah, I solved those problems before I get to that scale. I tried to, yeah. Because that's one of the most important things to create depth in the atmosphere is where the light source is coming from. That's one of the most critical aspects, I think. But, and that's the hardest thing to do in paintings is to paint values. The values, the light and dark or whatever color it is, and where it's supposed to go. Those are the hardest things. And it comes from practice. I mean, practice does wonders. And you'll do a lot of things that, that don't quite work out. And I have several problems as a painter. One is I start too many ideas. I'm an idea person. I mean, I'm constantly curious and looking for possible ideas. I mean, I find it in everything I look at. And so I'm always looking for ideas, and I'm always looking probably more than other artists' work than I do look at nature, although I have nature around me all the time. So some of the problems I have that I'm not a brush person. Now if you take Jack, well, there's a brush painter. There's a guy that knows how to mix paint and he knows how to use a brush. I'm not, I'm a line person primarily. I've made hundreds of prints, and prints that I developed, a lot of them are depend on line as the imagery. And so I'm a line person, and another thing is, you need to realize when some idea is not good and scrap it. I hardly ever scrap an idea. What I do sometimes is I come in and I cut part of it up. For example, if I get it that size, I can see, well, look, there's a possibility of a painting, you know, right here. And so I just cut that out, I've already got it, see? So that's an advantage, having them blown up. There's a place in my town, and I'm sure there's one here, that where you can have an image blown up. And there's so many possibilities. I mean, you see the scale right away, you see potential for other paintings, you know, in that scale, a lot of possibilities. Yeah.
If you're not a brush person, then what do you use to make sure something?
Well, I'm talking about, Jack can lay all these brushes out and he can tell you what name it is, what size it is. I couldn't have a clue, but I can look at a brush when I'm getting ready to do something and I know that's the brush I need to do that. And also, I don't use a big brush to lay paint around like he does. You see, it's a totally different kind of painter. So that's one of my weaknesses. Although I have done painting that have impasto and heavier and all that. But you always try to work on your weaknesses. Happens. Any other questions? Yeah.
You said you take aspects from other people's artwork and stuff. Does that ever?
What'd you say?
You said you take pieces from like artwork and stuff.
I do.
Postcards.
I do.
How does that work copyright-wise?
Well, it's there's a lot of complex to art for copyright. If you take 10% of a painter's painting and it's copyright, and have make original work with that 10%, then you're not breaking copyright law. But if you take more than that and the person's living or it's copyrighted, then it would be against the law.
So because you just took the animals and you didn't take anything else but the animals, that counts?
Well, it depends on what the composition was.
It has to be removed 80% from its original context. It has to be removed 80% from its original context.
So if you take any animal from anything at all,
Yeah, you
or
can-
any object, if you place it in an environment that's not even remotely close to what it was
It's
in
yours.
originally, it's okay.
Yeah, it'd be fine, yeah.
Right. And,
And a copyrights also, a lot of them, you know, if they're in public museums and they can then copyright, but then they're available to the public, because it's open to the public. And then if it's artist is still living, now in the show, you're gonna see some paintings where in the background of the painting, there's a master painting. Well, in the show, all the people that were living, when I did those, and 3 of them are dead now, I asked them, and they said, oh yeah, do anything you want. So I take anything I want. You know, what are they gonna do with me? I'm 85, they're gonna put me in jail? No. Well, they might today, you know, things have changed. But that's a good question, yeah.
I just worry about
No, it's a very good question, absolutely. Absolutely, but I've never, you know, everything I've heard, I never copyright anything, I didn't pay attention to it. In my book over there, you know, people all the time are using images out there. Fine.
You don't have to cite it or anything under any
I don't have
description.
what?
If you like give it to a museum or something, you don't have to cite any of the
No.
information? None of it?
But no, the only time you give things to the museum, you can count off on your taxes. The artist can't do it, but he can't, only the material aspect. In other words, if I gave a painting and it sells for $10,000 and I gave it to the museum, I can't count $10,000 on my income tax. But I could count off $500 because it cost me $500 to produce it, you see.
Ah,
But otherwise you can't. So, yeah,
You have a question?
yeah.
So in your work, you have painting works, but you also have like print works that you do that focus more on line as opposed to color. And do you have like a preference on that, or does it go back and forth? with
No,
what
it
you
goes
work
back
on?
and forth. Yeah, well, my printmaking for years, as you'll see in my talk, when I show a lot of my etchings, and that's the way I made my reputation and also how I got promoted. Because in academia, if you don't produce, then they're not gonna promote you. And so, there was a lot of print shows in the 70s, and I was in hundreds of them. And so, that's the way I got promoted real quick. And, that wasn't the reason I did them, but I mean, that was an aspect of it, you know. So I love to make prints. And recently I've made a lot of silk screen, which I'll show when I talk to the print people, I think tomorrow, whenever it is. But, I love to make silk screens, and although I'm retired, I still go up there for, sometimes 2 days a week, cause I have a studio up there. I love to make silk screens, great print. But the paintings, my paintings actually take longer to prepare the idea than it does to do the painting. Not the ones you're gonna see in there, though, some of those took a year. But they're all still lifes of objects that I collect, Indian material, that kind of stuff, which you'll see in the show. Now, the landscape and animal painting is, I've only been doing for about 30 years. You know, yeah.
So I know that, like, because you're in philology, I was wondering what are some things that you're considering or thinking about when organizing your composition? Is there certain things that you're like, I'm thinking about rule of thirds? I know aerial perspective, it kind of designs itself.
Right, absolutely. No, it's always a concern in the development of the idea. But what usually turns me going is the color of the landscape, or how, you know, that, because then I think I can use an animal in that situation. And then the other way I showed you I work. Those are two major different ways I work. But see, these are finished size, these are really works of art too. You know, this is this part of the development. But these are works of art too. I could do I could have plenty of these printed inside of them, it'd all be works of art. But, yeah.
I know that you're a sculptor as well, so it's like, is this idea development kind of?
What's that?
You're a sculptor?
Yes.
Is the process that you do for painting and printmaking kind of similar to?
Well, the way I do sculpture is I usually, of course, I have reference and knowledge of the animals. I've got the animals right there. And then my studio right now, I'm working on buffalo, and I got 2 of them right there, talking to me. And then I've got boards with maybe 300 photographs of buffalo, every way you can see a buffalo. And I got those on boards around, and so when I come in to work on that, I got mirrors. So I walk in there and that buffalo's right here, and I can walk around in that mirror and I can see. It's like when you're painting, I have huge mirrors, because you always want to look on the reverse of a painting with a mirror. Always, because you'll see the weak place right away. So you want to use a mirror. Get a little mirror through your hair. But, no. When I do the sculpture, well, the ones you'll see in the show are animals. And what I do is I just make a wire armature, and I start right out with the torso, and I build the torso, and I kept modeling. It's all model. And then, but that comes from the knowledge of the animals, and the ones I have in the building. Yeah. Not really a hunter, although I've hunted, but I'm not, I mean, I think it's fine if it's legal, you know, but I'm not really not a hunter. I don't even own a gun. I don't want to tell them that.
I have another question, I'm sorry. Who's the guy?
Any other questions?
He's got one.
So I saw on your painting that you have like broken brushstroke, and then to reveal the color underneath, and then you kind of create that vibration.
Right.
Is that also in your planning, or is that something
No,
that's more
it happens
spontaneous?
as you paint.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, I understand what I want underneath it, and it happens with building up transparency. I use actually a lot of glazing. I know your teacher's against it, but.
She has a question, sir.
Yeah.
This one, actually, how did you do this one? 'Cause that one looks like gorgeous.
Well, that's a photograph. I didn't do that. That's a photograph. That's a photograph, see? Yeah, I just like the photograph. Snow is very difficult. Of course, you down here don't get snow, do you?
Not much.
Where I live, we get it this deep. No, that's a photograph. And I have, now see,
Maybe just like 3 inches.
see, there's this is part of a black and white photograph. This is a plastic one. Then I drew all that in. And, now there's one in the show. That's in the show. What I did is I silk screened it in black and white, and then colored it. 'Cause I don't like to make additions. I like each one like a monoprint.
Okay.
Because otherwise I go nuts doing them. I mean, I just don't like to do it. But see, these are just all ones that look how beautiful the light is in that, see? Yeah, and then I was see, for an idea for an etching. That's a photograph. But I encourage you to put images in your notebook, no matter what it is. You know, you see color combinations that come out of, I get, as I said, a lot of magazines. I go through them very carefully because those people are smart with color. Really smart. Take advantage of them. You're not that smart. When you realize you're not very smart, you can learn from other people, you'll be better off. Because some of the people spend years developing a color concept. Years. So learn from them. Just like dyeing your hair, huh? Purple's purple. Okay,
You wanna take them down to the other end if there's no other questions?
I certainly could. I'd like to.
Okay, so, when we go down to the other end, there are a couple of things